Okay. Are we? Cool, cool. So yeah, some of the hardest parts are the most ancient. You got a lot to learn from the old heads. Um, so, take this in, youngin. This is one of my favorites, and some I keep coming back to, and like, there's always more to learn from it, and so yeah, that's why I'm reading it right now. Combat Liberalism from September 7th, 1937. And you already know it was written by motherfucking Mao Zedong, the original, the originator. We stand for active ideological struggle. We stand for active ideological struggle because it is the weapon for ensuring unity within the party and the revolutionary organizations in the interest of our fight. Every communist and revolutionary should take up this weapon. So that's only the first fucking sentence, but let that sink in. We stand for active ideological struggle. Struggle, disharmony, war, conflict. But why do we stand for it? Because it is the weapon for ensuring unity within the party. For ensuring, and let me back off with how pretentious I'm being in the elongation of some of these words here, but because it is the weapon for ensuring unity within the party. So the only reason you want to fucking keep the struggle is to ensure the unity. So ultimately, you really only have one thing. You have it all in common. That's where Christ tells you to forgive your enemies, because ultimately, an enemy, could be your friend, if only they were fucking so inclined and so educated. Now, we gotta fucking make sure to regulate talk like this with a hard understanding of the facts of the real world, which is murder and death. So, yeah, obviously, I want to say that even though turning the other cheek is what you should do, it's not always the most practical thing, or even necessarily going to work out. It's just correct, right? That's kind of important to understand about a lot of this shit we're talking about, or all of it, is that it doesn't really matter what you and me think of it. It matters if it's true or not. I feel like a dick repeating this right now because, like, I was just having like a really heated argument with someone very close to me, and it does definitely bear upon what I'm saying right now. But we'll keep it at that, because this is only the first line. But just, there's a lot of knowledge. So let's contrast. But liberalism rejects ideological struggle and stands for unprincipled peace, thus giving rise to a decadent Philistine attitude and bringing about political degeneration in certain units and individuals in the party and the revolutionary organizations. Liberalism manifests itself in various ways. To let things slide for the sake of peace and friendship when a person has clearly gone wrong and refrain from principled argument because he is an old acquaintance, a fellow townsman, a schoolmate, a close friend, a loved one, an old colleague or old subordinate, or to touch on the matter lightly instead of going into it thoroughly so as to keep on good terms. The result is that both the organization and the individual are harmed. And this is one type of liberalism. To indulge in irresponsible criticism in private instead of actively putting forward one's suggestions to the organization. I guess you would maybe accuse me of that credibly right now in terms of I'm like reading this bullshit out and talking about my disagreement rather than, I guess, you know, having it out with the other person. Which, you know, yeah, is ultimately fair. Although, I will say, I needed to give them a break, and myself a break from just fucking talking so much. And, you know, there's a point where, you know, arguing is not, even when you're right, is not necessarily going to convince the other person. So that's a fine line there too. In all the things we're talking about. To say nothing to people to their faces, but to gossip behind their backs, or to say nothing at a meeting, but to gossip afterwards, to show no regard at all for the principles of collective life, but to follow one's own inclination. This is the second type. That's pretty important. I mean, we're all as individuals inclined to kind of disregard others and the actual like collective good, even though we're party to that, we're the ones who most benefit from that, but we aren't ultimately gonna like act or desire to act in our own good. To let things drift if they do not affect one personally, to say as little as possible while knowing perfectly well what is wrong, to be worldly wise and play safe and seek only to avoid blame. This is a third type. So yeah, that's a danger too in what we're talking about, where it's like, and that's exactly where I would refute some of the accusations I've just labeled, or the accusations I've hurled at myself about how I took in this argument. It's equally wrong to to let things go when you actually should argue. But you can still be a fucking dick for, you know, being right all the time and stuff like that. That's you know, so it's a pretty fine line there. You can't just be an individual. To let things drift if they do not affect one personally. To say as little as possible while knowing perfectly well what is wrong. To be worldly wise and play safe and seek only to avoid blame. This is a third type. Not to obey orders, but to give pride of place to one's own opinions. To demand special consideration from the organization, but to reject its discipline. So, in learning all these things and fucking becoming the expert and stuff, you have to be willing also to absolutely subjugate yourself to fucking its discipline and its rigor and like the fact that it, like its authority and its authority over your life. You have to be subjugated to that. This is a fourth type of liberalism. To indulge in personal attacks, pick quarrels, vent personal spite, or seek revenge instead of entering into an argument and struggling against incorrect views for the sake of unity or progress or getting the work done properly. This is a fifth type. Okay, so the fifth type of liberalism is, yeah, that's pretty easy. It's just not making it about too much about you and them and what you think and what they think. It's just what's true, what's correct here. And ultimately, if one of us thinks that over the other, then it does kind of it makes it personal in that regard, in the direct like disagreement we're having. But it's not about attacking you as a person or just my personal spite. Like, it's not just that I think you're a dick or something. Although I might, if I really do think you're wrong, I might think you're a dick. But my disagreement with you can't ultimately be about that. To hear incorrect views without rebutting them, and even to hear counter-revolutionary remarks without reporting them, but instead to take them calmly as if nothing happened. This is a sixth type. And this is a really difficult thing for me, because, ultimately people do disagree with me, don't they? People disagree with me all the time. About a great many things. And about a great many of those things, I think I'm absolutely right and they're absolutely wrong. And so it's a fine line in approaching that, because it's, again, let's reiterate, it's not about that in terms of, it's not about my personal feelings or my personal worth or your personal worth or feelings. It's about the motherfucking truth. And that's about as sad. To be among the masses. And yeah, that's a sixth type of liberalism, if you didn't caught none of that. To be among the masses and fail to conduct propaganda and agitation, or speak at meetings, or conduct investigations and inquiries among them, and instead to be indifferent to them, and show no concern for their well-being, forgetting that one is a communist, and behaving as if one were an ordinary non-communist. This is a seventh type. This is kind of a, I don't even want to say a bad translation. I've heard it translated before, to behave as if a communist were simply an ordinary person. Which is kind of funny, because paradoxically it's like, yeah, like literally you are. No amount of ideological expertise or like struggle or adherence to that that duty on your part can actually make you more than any other person. That's what it's all about, though. In understanding that, you actually do, paradoxically, become different from other people. And so, that's how being a communist is different from not being a communist. This is a seventh type of liberalism. To see someone harming the interests of the masses and yet not feel indignant or dissuade or stop him or reason with him, but to allow him to continue. This is an eighth type. Remember, William Blake says, the voice of righteous indignation is the voice of God. Righteous indignation is the voice of God. It's you should make those feelings of indignation your guide and authority in some regard, in many regards, or in almost absolute. I would only qualify it with that you should temper it with the understanding that the actual corollary, goddamn, I can't say this. the actual counterpart, I can't say corollary, um, hold on, I'm getting too hung up on that. The actual result that needs to be pursued in vindicating and respecting indignation and fulfilling what it asks, and like the the problem that causes the indignation, solving that is not about revenge. It's not merely about the feelings of indignation. Although the feelings, I mean, again, we're getting paradoxical, and I'm high as fuck. You can hear it, but righteous indignation is like just the truth. It is kind of everything up to a point, but its fulfillment in the things it's asking of you is not revenge. It's justice, and there is a difference between revenge and justice, although it's like they can often be confused. It's the difference between a lynch mob and an honest attempt to make an account for someone's actions and make them responsible for them, while still recognizing that they're ultimately a human being too. To work half-heartedly without a definite plan or direction, to work perfunctorily and muddle along. So long as one remains a monk, one goes on tolling the bell. This is a 9th type. I couldn't tell you anything about this. I have no clue. What does this mean? Yeah, I could always stand, we could all stand and do a bit more planning. But a lot of spontaneous organization happens, and that's good too. But like, yeah, it matters that there is like there is actually a direction being pursued. I guess that is a good way to come around to almost justifying my behavior. Is to say it's like I do work in a general direction, even though sometimes, or a lot of the time, I am going in a million crazy different directions. But at the same time, there is one general direction that is important and got to be pursued. And if I ever lost sight of that, then I would be not only lost, but I wouldn't really be able to do the individual things that I do also. To regard oneself as having rendered great service to the revolution, to pride oneself on being a veteran, to disdain minor assignments while being quite unequal to major tasks, to be slipshod in work and slack in study. This is a 10th type. All you motherfuckers on Twitter really gotta listen up to that one. To regard oneself as having rendered great service to the revolution, to pride oneself on being a veteran, to disdain minor assignments while being quite unequal to major tasks. Who does this remind us of? Yeah, because a lot of people are going to tell you about what this stuff means, and they're going to want to be an authority on it, even though they haven't actually fucking cracked the books and done the reading. That's why I get on all you motherfuckers, and all you motherfuckers will call me an anti-Semite and a fascist and whatever, but I don't really hate you, I just think you're fucking wrong. And it matters the difference. And yeah, you gotta fucking crack the books and understand all this shit if you want to fucking talk about it. That's why it's just like, if you want to fucking run your mouth about communism, you gotta be ready for people to tell you, hey, you're motherfucking wrong, and there's someone who's motherfucking right about this. Like, there is actually an objective answer here. Like, that's where Marxism actually is a science. Dialectical materialism is actually a science. It's more than just fucking books and philosophy and stuff. Because you and me can feel this way or not, but it happens to be the truth. There you go. To be aware of one's own mistakes and yet make no attempt to correct them. Taking a liberal attitude towards oneself. This is an 11th type. I think we've been pretty motherfucking good about this. Let's stop saying the F word so much, but just to say, like, I feel like each one of these things, I want to almost like level it myself first, right? I have to make sure I'm not fucking doing this. Otherwise, I have no authority or right to claim, like, or to tell other people that they're doing it, or, you know, to stop doing it. You know, I gotta not be guilty of it myself. I gotta practice what I preach. It's really fucking tough. I sound so pretentious even saying it, but and we all struggle with that. And that's like the problem, so to speak, with communism and Christianity from the fucking beginning of time. Is because, you know, it's all well and good to think these things and want it to happen. We could name more, but these 11 are the principal types. You've really fucking pretty much, you've covered the subject pretty exhaustively, I would say, Chairman. They are all manifestations of liberalism. Infinitely various, though. All the same. Liberalism is extremely harmful in a revolutionary collective. Excuse me, corrective. Liberalism is extremely let me provide a corrective to my mispronunciation. I'm sorry, I love fun so much. But Jesus did too. Liberalism is extremely harmful in a revolutionary collective. It is a corrosive which eats away unity, undermines cohesion, causes apathy, and creates dissension. It robs the revolutionary ranks of compact organization and strict discipline, prevents policies from being carried through, and alienates the party organizations from the masses which the party leads. It is an extremely bad tendency. Yeah, I should motherfucking say so. Again, with that word, but I should say so that it's bad practice to be leading and responsible for something and not care about it, not truly want to take the time with it and do it. You just want to say it. You just want to claim it. It's an extremely bad tendency, and it really has caused the name of communism in Christianity to be a curse and like a word of approbation for a lot of people, and they're not even really wrong to feel that way. But again, it matters that still you can say all that, and communism is still also is actually literally like the fulfillment of all that truth. Like it has to take responsibility for those things, and that's what makes it what it is. But it's all a part of it. Liberalism stems from petty bourgeois selfishness. It places personal interest first and the interests of the revolution second. And this gives rise to ideological, political, and organizational liberalism. People who are liberals look upon the principles of Marxism as abstract dogma. And I want to be clear too, because it really matters what we're talking about here. Liberals although a lot of this really does apply to, American Western liberals, liberal Democrat, liberal democracy, Western liberal democracy. Specifically, liberalism is a thing in general beyond it. And so just make sure you understand that in hearing me say the word liberal and how I've used it a million times in this and in speaking about combating liberalism. Make sure you understand what it is, because it's not merely owning the fucking libs, and like, it's understanding what makes someone a liberal, and making sure that you're not doing that too. They approve of Marxism but are not prepared to practice it, or to practice it in full. There you go. They are not prepared to replace their liberalism by Marxism. These people have their Marxism, but they have their liberalism as well. They talk Marxism, but practice liberalism. They apply Marxism to others, but liberalism to themselves. They keep both kinds of goods in stock and find a use for each. This is how the minds of certain people work. Yeah, you gotta talk the talk. You gotta walk the walk, motherfucker. I won't make it any more complicated than that, but you probably already know it. Liberalism is a manifestation of opportunism and conflicts fundamentally with Marxism. It is negative and objectively has the effect of helping the enemy. That is why the enemy welcomes its preservation in our midst. Such being its nature, there should be no place for it in the ranks of the revolution. We must use Marxism, which is positive in spirit, to overcome liberalism, which is negative. So that's why it fucking matters, man. Like, which one you choose, because there's good and evil, and like, and again, I'm using almost too subjective a language about it, because it doesn't matter that evil is evil per se. It matters that evil is wrong. It's misguided. That's I guess, I've tried to articulate before that, Satan could be as worthy of forgiveness and understanding as anyone else if he actually repented, or like, there's plenty of he's got some good work ethic. He seems to really care about the overall project, he just gets a little ahead of himself. It's just about whether a motherfucker is willing to admit they're wrong and to crack the books and learn. But anybody could do it, and there's really no point at which you're totally lost if you're willing to make a change, no matter how small, but not to undersell you on how like hard it is, and like how absolutely you really are gonna have to subject yourself to discipline, and like there really can't be anything else in you. Like, there can't be any selfishness or bullheadedness, or I don't want to do this, or I don't care, all those other feelings in you have to come second to what you're trying to do. Because in theory, it's true and it's right. That theory has to be mediated by practice, and so you'll experience the truth of something. How do you test whether something's good or evil? You see whether or not it makes you go towards God or away. whether it makes you want to be together and work towards positive things and love and happiness and like a positive result for all, and or whether it makes you want to just focus on yourself and fucking masturbating and swearing and just self-indulgence, and you know, and there is a place for pleasure and fun and all that, but it just has to be tempered by discipline and respect, and that's justice. A communist should have largeness of mind, and he should be staunch and active. You gotta be as open-minded as you are fucking rigidly adhering to this shit. And that's what makes it different from ideology. That's what makes it, although it, does constitute ideology in itself, but it's the ideology of not merely following an ideology, not merely following an idol, but the content and the substance. Looking upon the interests of the revolution as his very life, and subordinating his personal interests to those of the revolution. Always and everywhere he should adhere to principle and wage a tireless struggle against all incorrect ideas and actions, so as to consolidate the collective life of the party and strengthen the ties between the party and the masses. He should be more concerned about the party and the masses than about any private person, and more concerned about others than about himself. Only thus can he be considered a communist. That's the whole fucking kettle of fish right there. These things are understandings, and you're to be commended for understanding and for getting it, but getting it is also a fucking responsibility. And if you're not willing to take that responsibility up, then you actually don't motherfucking get it. You don't get it at all. It's lost on you completely. And that's what he means about it should be your life. Like, you should feel like duty. It's not, you can fucking laugh at me saying duty if you want. Like, duty is felt as like an impulse, as the fulfillment of desire. Man, like, I want to live a just and good life, and to make things better for other people. And how can I not be fulfilled in that? And that's all I should want to do. And anything else is really just distraction and like fear in me, and just my own personal weakness to the degree that I don't do that. All loyal, honest, active, and upright communists must unite to oppose the liberal tendencies shown by certain people among us and set them on the right path. This is one of the tasks on our ideological front. Yeah, it's not even the only fucking one, but it makes up a great deal of your duties, and the class struggle, so to speak, is the conflict at which the state of conflict at which communists are with liberals and liberalism. I think the only thing that we really haven't spoken about is like what the party actually consists in, but I guess that should be fairly obvious, right? And it's the same as with liberalism, where in talking about it, you can view it in a more specific way, but it also applies broadly. He was talking about the Communist Party of China, but it could apply to any communist party, or like not only can it apply, but it applies absolutely to any kind of communist formation or organization that could ever exist. Like, all these things are still true in a completely different context, and that's really kind of what makes them true. You could hear me about to say fuck about it, because that's how much I really believe it. Alright. Thank you so much for listening to me. I hope maybe you learned something, or were entertained, or, you know. Yeah, thanks. Good night.